Before we begin and before we open our eyes and start to create, know that you can always come back to this tool. You can always pause and even close your eyes. Take a really deep breath at any moment throughout your creative process. To slow down and bring your intention back to engaging with the present moment. This tool is available to you not only today during this workshop, but every moment of every day. So with that, we'll gently open our eyes. And we're gonna pick up our paintbrushes. So we're gonna start, actually, I guess not with our paintbrushes. We're gonna start doing this exercise here. So, and I'm going to grid out 2 inches down. So I'm just gonna mark every 2 inches going down my page, both directions. And again, if you don't have a ruler, that's totally fine. Maybe just try and mark out, even with your paintbrush, a nice solid space about the length of your thumb. And if you feel like you want to, you can actually make the grid lines. So you have a nice grid going the whole, it's like a crooked grid, but that's okay. Length and width of your page. So once you guys have that, it's a little difficult because I can't see your page, but once you guys have that, I'll just show you what we're going to be doing. So first, I'm going to dip my brush into my clean water, and I'm going to dip it all the way down to the bottom of my cup. I'm going to get my brush really wet. And then I'm going to take my wet paint and I'm going to go, wet brush, and I'm just going to dab it over my paint here. I don't really know what colors I'm going to use quite yet. Maybe you guys have an idea from what color your breath was, but I'm going to put a little drop of water on each color just so that they're ready to go for when I need it.
Carol, do you have a question? I see you raised your hand. Is that by accident? I think maybe it's accident.
Okay.
Okay.
So once you have your palette set up and your brush is really wet, go ahead and pick a color or mix a color, whatever feels good to you. And as I said last week, the way that I pick up paint is I roll the brush over my my color or pigment so that it doesn't create like this hole in the pan. Sometimes I find that people just want to kind of stab their paintbrush into the pigment. We want to roll and really get the belly of our brush really full of pigment. And I chose these big circles so that we would have a lot of space to be able to explore breath with our circles. So I'm going to start on the top left since I'm a righty. If you are a lefty, you might want to start on the top right and just move across your page. And before you even put your paintbrush onto the page, I hold my paintbrush not directly perpendicular, but at almost a 45 or 55 degree angle to my page. I'm going to take a nice deep breath in. And on my exhale, I'm going to press my paintbrush down into the page and create a really nice circle, the entire size of my square on the entire exhale. Then I'm going to dip my brush into my water, maybe take another inhale. And as I exhale, I'm going to press my brush again down onto the page and just fill in that circle and take the entire exhale to do so. So each circle is 2 breaths. You might notice that maybe your breath moves a little bit faster or a little slower than how you're painting. And just know that we have the whole page to practice and kind of find a rhythm that works for us. Maybe by the end of the page, it's just one really long breath that you take to make your entire circle. But the whole point is just to pause and really try and link your movement to breath. I'm gonna switch colors here. You're welcome to use just one color the whole way through. But what I want you to notice is your tendency maybe to rush, if that's true for you, or maybe you're feeling really good just settling into a slower pace. As you paint, notice what your body is doing, notice what your shoulders are doing, the space in between your eyebrows, if you're furrowing your brow or if you're getting really close to your page. See if you can loosen up, even loosen the grip that you have on your brush. So you'll notice when your colors, or if your colors touch one another, they start to maybe bleed into one another, which is a beautiful result of watercolors and painting with water. So see it kind of start to experiment with that. See if you need a little more water on your page with your pigment or a little less. Maybe you start to notice how some colors really love to flow and some are a little bit lazier. It all kind of depends on the density and the weight of your pigment, of your paint. So some may want to move really fast through the water and some may just settle really heavy onto the page quicker.
Jamie, I have a question for you.
Go for it.
Could you talk a little bit about how you clean your brush between colors, or if you care or don't care?
Yeah, well, it definitely depends on what I'm working on, if I care or don't care. But I clean my brush, like I said, I use 1 cup for dirty and 1 cup for clean. For some reason, I chose the smaller cup for the dirty water, which I maybe should have switched. But in between colors, I make sure to bring my brush all the way to the base of my water cup. And I really dab it on the bottom, trying to get all that pigment out. And then I wipe my brush on the edge of the water cup. And I just take it to my clean water and do a nice dip in there, again, all the way to the bottom. I press, press, press. And then I kind of rub it against my brush against the edge of my cup. So these brushes, I'm using a round brush. It's a size 12, or it might be a little bit bigger. And I always try and roll it to bring the shape back, to bring the point back to the tip of the brush as well. And then when I'm doing a warm-up exercise like this, I tend to just not care as much and kind of see what happens and kind of play with those happy accidents. But when I'm working on a more finished piece, then I definitely take a time to clean my brush pretty well.
Yeah, that's cool. I didn't know about the two jar technique.
Yeah, a lot of some people do warm and cools, but I find that then I just have 2 cups of really dirty water. And yeah, so it's been helpful for me.
Thank you.
Yeah. Okay, hopefully we are very oxygenated. Has everyone gotten to the bottom of their page? No, okay, take your time.
So Jamie, are you filling in, you're first putting wet on the page with no paint, and then you're bringing the paint on top, or are you just bringing the really saturated paintbrush that has paint on it?
So on like my first one I did, it's a really saturated paintbrush that I used to create the circle. And then I just dipped my brush in the water and I just did a really light wash for my second one,
Okay.
just seeing how that pigment would bleed into my second circle. So I'm definitely varying the amount of water and pigment in my circles. They're not all saturated or they're not all mostly water.
But the goal is to have them bleed into one another?
That is nice, but but sometimes even like I found I'm using these paints that are really locally like from Earth, and they're really heavy, so they don't really bleed as much, I'm finding. And yeah, and like even my blue you see here, it's like almost grainy.
Right.
So, and that's kind of cool, but it's just a little bit different than what I'm used to. So this exercise not only like slows you down, but it also just makes you a little more familiar with your paints and their characteristics, because each color can be a little bit different.
Gotcha. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.